Oh, hello everyone. I've actually pressed the button on the 7:15 going by my computer screen. So it's good to have the technical stuff is working, and I just realised my iPad is on making noises. I don't know if that's actually in my background or your background or what. Hopefully not. Anyway, I've got Leonie Marks, the Soul Whisperer, is my guest tonight. So I'm going to say hi, Leonie, and introduce you. And you're on the screen now. Away you go.
Hi, everybody. Away I go. You want me to start speaking?
Hang on. No, I'll put the screen up where we were before I started. Some things I still need a little bit of practice with, and that's the controls in the background. I have been using the LIVEstream platform now for, I think it was October or November last year. It's still taking a little bit of practice. Not often I've had three things up on the screen at once. So how are you, Leonie?
I am very well, thank you, Roz, and thanks for inviting me tonight.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy the fact that we can have so much variety in the types of things that we, I wouldn't say just predicting the future or anything, because with our Mytimetv.live page on Facebook, which is where this is the source page. So, and I will go to solo just for a moment to do that housekeeping. Sure. For those who might be on the Hypnosis Plus with Roz page, the live video hub, the Bet's Holistic Therapy page, or on the news stream following Roz Bounty, I'm not sure where else I put it. Click the link that takes you to the Mytimetv.live page, because that is where I'll be able to see your comments and any questions you've got, so that I can include you on the screen or what's needed at the time, okay? So just to point that out and then share it once you're there at the Mytimetv is a lot easier, okay? So that's that part done. Now, part of the reason why I asked you to be my guest on our show, Leonie, was because there is there's an intention with the Mytimetv.live to actually have more of a variety of programs, shows, live streams, rather than just the heavy weighting at the moment of the psychic tarot medium type of a show. We're gradually getting there, and it caused me to actually think about, well, what other way is there that I know? Well, I sort of did dabble once upon a time in the astrology, and I straight away thought of you as being, you taught me what I do know. And I thought you'd be perfect to have as my guest, thank you. And to take us through, how did you actually get interested in astrology in the first place, as a bit of an intro, and what is happening at the moment, because there's a lot of frazzled people around still.
There is a lot of frazzled people, and I've experienced quite a significant frazzle myself over the last couple of months as well. Thank you, Roz, for having me and for thinking of me when you thought of astrology. We've spent many an hour, haven't we, in a day chatting over charts and looking through that lens at the world. So what got me interested? Gosh, I think what I kind of have figured out as I've gone along is that I was actually born with this affliction and gift and way of looking at the world. And it took me quite some time to realise that. So the first time I saw a chart, I was a teenager, probably about, 14 or 16, and I thought, well, this is just a bit interesting, and it drew me in straight away. I do have an older sister, like significantly older than me, who was trained as a professional astrologer but has never actually worked as a professional astrologer. So she was able to open the doorway a bit further, and it was actually with her that I saw the first chart and attended some lessons with her in Queensland at the time, and while she was living up there with some of Australia's most renowned astrologers, a couple of whom are sadly not with us anymore. But it was one of those peak experiences, and is held by fascination since then. And let me tell you, that's a very long time. so I've been using astrology since then. I guess it really peaked for me around 30, and that's when I probably late 20s, but around 30 when I started to use it professionally. I also studied psychology, and it was that point I'd been a nurse, and it was at that point that I went to university to study psychology and started to learn all these different ways, different lenses, different ways to look at human behaviour, the human psyche, and that kind of thing. And it had always fascinated me. I was champing at the bit as a nurse to wait till the children were old enough to go to school, and then I knew that I was off to uni to psychology. It's always been the mind and the psyche that's really interested me and how that affects the rest of us. And so whilst I studied psychology, side by side, I compared psychology and astrology all the way. And of course, that led me to be very interested in the work of Carl Jung, the father of psychotherapy. Many of his theories, he openly draws on the archetypes of astrology to inform his theories. There are many psychological tests. There are probably about 3,000 or more accredited tests of psychology that test all things about your personality and goodness knows what else. There's quite a few of those that have a basis in astrology, and you can even see, like, having done research in that area and seeing where it was drawn from, I can see how they use the angles of the chart, the whole thing, and their early papers where they were looking at all of that and then how to bring it into what they often thought was a more scientific framework, the irony of which is that the ancients and the way they used astrology was extremely scientific and mathematical. Of course, our application is probably, the way we talk about it is much more intuitive, but we know that it's based on those early parameters. So I never lost my interest after I started, even through various forms of professional training. And even at certain points I thought I wouldn't look at astrology or talk about it anymore or whatever. And every time I thought I'd enter into that cocoon, someone would literally knock on my door or ring my phone or say, hey, where are you? I really want to, know about this that's going on. Can you have a look at my chart for me? And so it just became a natural part of everyday life, really. And I don't think there's anyone I've met in my whole life that I haven't looked at their chart. So, and even, there's going to be a part, the longer you live, the more likely and the more often, or the more you're going to realise cycles through your life where you will have a sense of existential crisis, particularly late 30s into early 40s. Is your rite of passage. You're meant to have one, and it can be totally awesome as well as totally, frightening. And other periods through your life in different growth cycles. That's one of the things I love about astrology. It can tell you exactly what growth cycle you're in, the kind of personality, behaviour, and requirements that the ruler of that growth cycle you're having has, and what the weather pattern is, what the emotional and psychological weather pattern is. And then, being the wonderful beings that we are, who are amazing and have the capacity to tap in and get whatever we need from life, sometimes with support, sometimes on our own, we can then navigate that far better than struggling and resisting against it and wondering, WTF here, thanks very much, I want out. When you know the weather pattern, you just start to realise what's happening, and you can just work with it a lot better. Do you find that personally too?
I'd have to say that for me it was not so much WTF or whatever, it was OMG with a lot of what I feel. And I'm sort of thinking, I do remember it was around the 40s, mid-40s roughly. Gee, how long did we need? It seems so long ago.
What's going on here? Yeah. So it's always helped me make sense of the world, helped me to understand myself better, helped me to understand other people. And it's just my go-to tool, the number one tool in my toolkit. Plenty of other ones. It's a lens to look through life, and I find it a really powerful one. Yeah.
I think probably too, because as I've done a couple of shifts in the last 2 years, as in moving house and things in boxes and being moved around, sorted, sort of, cleaned out. At some point there will be. I came across my box that did have the books from the Book Nook and the astrology and all the rest. I've still got a lot of them.
Excellent.
I think I should do something with these, as we talked earlier. I might yet still. It's very interesting how many different tools, different ways that we can actually use to help ourselves do that self-discovery and growth and, learning what is actually blocking us and all the rest of it. I mean, I've gone further into a bit more of the hypnotherapy. I remember you putting me under when I thought, I wasn't. You.
I love
lots of tools. But with the exploration of astrology for now, because that is your expertise, it really is where you've got the passion, I know. I'll put the chart back up. I might just first say hi to those who are here now that I've taken the names down now. So there's Dana who's joined in. So hi, Dana, and Melissa. I'm hoping all of these names are actually showing up on the screen. Yvonne, hi to you as well. And we've got Carolyn here. Okay, so some of the oops, another one just popped in, Jenny. So being aware too that sometimes with the live streaming and doing this sort of thing that's got the chat on the side, there can be some time delays between what Leonie and I are seeing here in our background and how long it takes to actually show up to the Facebook live stream, you know, the screen that you guys are looking at. So I might not be putting up every comment as well, because we're going to be in conversation. So it might be any questions will be at the end. Okay. So I'm just going to put up the chart for what I created from my Astro Gold, Leonie, that is for the 7:15 that we started hit that broadcast, you know, start the broadcast. So I'm not sure if I can actually point to things as you're talking about them, because I could get totally lost in all this. I'm assuming that I can. You can see the little cursor there? You can too. Yep. Well, I can.
You can point? All right. As long as you do the pointing, I'll do the talking. How's that? Well, we can both do the talking, but I'll leave you to pointing. I won't even try. So as I said, what we thought we would do is work through some of the points in what we can see in today's chart, which is a snapshot in time of where all of the planets are. And each of them holds their own energy. They all move at different speeds. They all have a different profile or archetype, if you like. Most of us are familiar with archetypes. And where they sit, as you can see in the sky, this is a picture of the sky, really, that you're looking at, of our solar system in relation to us on planet Earth. And the chart is a 2D picture of it that we can look at and say, oh, a bit like a doctor looks at an X-ray or something like that. Or, you know, how you might look at a card spread, a tarot card spread or an oracle card spread. So we're looking at that and seeing a snapshot in time. It tells us stuff about the past, it tells us stuff about today, and it tells us things about where we might go in terms of the future in relation to this energy. So I guess there may be people here that have never seen a chart before. So should we just quickly whiz through the structure of the chart, Ross?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea for those that have no idea.
All right. So you can see that it's, sorry, Ross, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to mention on my iPad way back when I first got my first one, there was a little app called Sky View that you can actually download, and you point it wherever in the sky and you can actually almost see where the stars are and the planets and the rest. It's absolutely, it's an eye-opener comparing this that's in front of us as a chart compared to what is actually out there using that app. That's all I wanted to add with that. So don't download it now. We're here busy doing this.
Not quite dark where we are yet for looking. But anyway, you can point it at the sky whenever you want to, of course. So anything like that is great. Anything that gives you that real sense of it, you know, in reality out there in the sky. And that's something I have been a stargazer since I was a child. Love it. I could look at the sky, and I used to sneak up and stay up very, very late a lot of nights when I was a kid, peering out the window at the stars and watching things out there. Absolutely loved it. So anyway, having a look at this chart. So the structure of the chart, as you can see, is a circle. You'll see it's divided into 12 sections, and the numbers are in the centre and nozzle point in the centre ring, yellow ring, yeah. And the number one, you got on number one? Yep, because I can't see, so I'll trust that you're on it. Good. Okay, so that is called the first house. So these sections of the chart are called houses, and they relate to when we look up into the sky, like Ross said, we can look up there using an app that tells us exactly what we're looking at or just our bare eyes. But those 12 houses represent the 12 sections of our sky that we can see that hold the position of the 12 constellations that we refer to as the horoscope or the zodiac. And so they are Aries through to Pisces. So starting at Aries and working all the way through the 12 through to Pisces. So each of them have a natural place that they belong. Now we're looking at a chart divine for 7:15 today in Adelaide. If someone was born at that time, this is what their chart would look like. And it moves. We could have it in motion, but it's too confusing. But it moves all the time.
Yeah.
So they're the houses. Then you can see all the pretty pictures, which are, you can see if you point to the moon, Ross, it's very evident that that's the moon, symbol for the moon. And then the sun, the moon today is in Capricorn. We'll talk about in a minute. Sun is in Aries, if you want to point at the sun. And then all the other little symbols are called glyphs, and they are all a symbol for various planets. You probably also, if you haven't seen them before, you'd probably recognise Venus and Mars. We use them a lot to represent female and male.
Yeah,
the Venus and Mars symbols.
And Mars there.
So every planet has one of those symbols that we use to just represent it in this map. And then you see they're all have another picture next to them, which is the symbol of the signs. And if you know astrology, you'll know them. If you've even just seen astrology in a magazine or a newspaper, they often use those symbols in there too, next to the name. So if you look at the moon again, that symbol that's there with it, that's the symbol for Capricorn. And you can see it's got a lot of friends in Capricorn at the moment. We'll talk about what that means. We have lots of energy there. You can see when you look at Venus, it has Mercury and Neptune next to it in Pisces. And that symbol looks like that to represent the two fish joined together. Got that one, Ross?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we already pointed at the sun in Aries. So that's how we know this planet is currently in that sign according to what it looks like from planet Earth. And then depending on the time that we look will depend on which house in the chart they fall into. Yeah?
Yes.
When we do astrology lessons, we go into this in a lot more detail, but that just gives you a rough idea. All of that flavours, we're looking at a natal chart, so your birth chart, all of that flavours how this comes through in your personality, whether those planets are down the bottom of your chart, like they're in the 4th house, whether they're up the top in the 10th house, all those lines in the middle are talking about the relationship between each planet. That all has.
It's a bit of an echo with the sound there, Leonie. I'm getting that. Don't know whether something bumped with your headset.
Maybe. Is that any better? I might have thrashed my head around like a wild thing.
Yeah, no, that is better. So I'm not seeing any other comments. It's just me noticed it probably.
Good. Okay. So, right. I don't want to turn this into a big astrology lesson and confuse people. I think if we talk about the energies and how they are affecting us at the moment, yeah? Is that okay? We can leave any questions about this part to the end, Ros, or is there anyone thinking, what on earth are you girls on about that needs to know something right now?
Look, I think probably what you did, I'll do that solo again just to give them another brief run. So just to summary what I remember, Leonie, just saying the 1 to the 12 on that inner circle is the houses, which are those divisions that are cutting it into 12 sections. I mean, that it's not always that obvious, but there are 12 there as I'm moving that cursor. Each one of those houses is where the planets are held. And as you can see on the outside are the hieroglyphic symbols that are for the, that word's just gone totally out of my head. What's it called? Our astrology symbols, what are they called?
Glyphs. They just call them glyphs, but that's okay. The horoscope, do you mean, or the zodiac?
Yeah, the horoscope. Yeah. That was the word I was trying to look for. So that's the one that has your Libra, your Sagittarius, whichever they are, Capricorn. Now I'm getting confused. But anyway, that is the gist of how they sit as a chart. Now, whether it's the natal or the transits or the, for whatever purpose, an event or a business starting up or whatever, that's something that Leonie does really well. I'm going to drop the chart down, so it's just the two of us at the moment then on the screen. Okay.
All right.
And
good.
Have the questions afterwards. Just going to put that one up because Nita's put good morning. Is one able to tell a lot in detail with these readings as a question?
Yes. You can look at a chart for a lot of different reasons and questions that you may have, Nita, and there are lots of branches of astrology. For example, you can look at a chart called a horary chart, which means of the hour, and look at one question. It's got to be really specific. I dabble in that for fun, but being very intuitive, I'll look at your chart and answer your question directly from your chart. But you can definitely do a chart for a question. It even comes down to that. The detail in the chart, for example, if I'm going to provide an astrology session for someone around their natal chart, which is what we do when I start initially working with someone, that appointment is 2 hours long. And at the end of it, people's brains are very full and they've already had a shift inside of themselves, and people still come back to me 1 year, 2 year, 3 years later and comment about things I've heard in their natal chart or what's happened. So it's very detailed, and every time you look at the chart, you'll get a new layer, because we're evolving and our chart will look like our natal chart will look the same, but then we have other aspects to it, like the progressed chart. So when things move in your progressed chart, like your moon or your ascendant, big things happen for us at that time. And then you have your transit charts, your solar return. It's a chart that you get every birthday, and it goes on and on and on. So the amount of detail you can get is endless, and how we want to apply it and use it is up to each individual. And any question that you want to ask, your chart can provide you with some information. It may not be what you want to hear, but it'll be the wisdom of what your chart and your soul has got to offer on that day. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds very similar to sometimes with the cards. You may not like what you see, but that's what they come up with.
And you can keep going back and drawing another one, but you're just going to get the same answer in a different way, aren't you? Which sometimes we need to do for it to actually go in, and that's okay. But you won't get a new reading, will you, or a new outcome until you've actually done whatever's required. Worked with it and done what's required. Lived it. Yeah, lived it. Yeah. So then should we talk about Mercury? Is everyone aware of Mercury retrograde? There's probably been 3.5 million posts on it in the last couple of weeks.
And I'll just solo the chart again and just point to where the Mercury is, because it's actually the purple one that's sitting there in the 6th house in this chart. That's Pisces, isn't it? So
it is in Pisces at the moment.
The rest I'll give to you, Leonie, as a solo view, okay? So you won't have the chart on view there. It's just you this time.
Okay.
So away you go.
So most of us who have some interest in astrology will have heard of Mercury retrograde. Little darling that Mercury is, the archetype and the space, the domain within us and within our reality that Mercury covers is everything mental, and also therefore technology that we use to communicate with. So communication, individually, it's about how we think and process things, how our mind works, what kind of makes us tick in that way in our intellectual capacities, the kinds of things that we like to read, indeed how we read. Are we deep, thoughtful readers that never skip a page, or can we just go fit and read 3 or 4 different books at once? And that can change across your lifetime as well. The kind of conversations that we like to have, some people like one-to-one, deep and meaningful, prefer that all the time. Others like to be chit-chatting with everyone around the room or somewhere in between. Our Mercury can tell us a lot about that, and also where we might have communication clashes with another person. It's very fascinating. Just if you just look at everyone in the room and look at their Mercury, what sign it's in, what house it's in, and how does that play out. So Mercury likes to be in Virgo or Gemini and behaves very differently in both of them, but likes to be in those ones. It's okay in the other signs too, but that's his 2 favourite ones that govern the intellect. But transiting Mercury 4 times a year goes into a phase called retrograde. And what it simply means is, where we're standing on planet Earth, if we could see every one of the planets in our solar system and see them moving, we probably all learned this in about grade 7 science. We see that they all move at a different speed around the sun, and they also have a different shape to their transit around the sun. And then we're moving as well. So when we look at them, sometimes it appears that one of them is going backwards, and we call that retrograde. It's not really going backwards, but it feels like it is to us on planet Earth. Just like if you've ever been in that little traffic groove where you're stationary and another car's moving, you suddenly have a jolt and think, oh my God, I'm moving, and you're trying to put your foot on the brake, and you're not. It's actually the one next to you. Same kind of thing. And we do a bit of an oh my God when Mercury goes retrograde, because it's suddenly changed. It does definitely affect our minds and our communication. And because we are so into our social media and the internet and our devices for our communication now, we really notice the Mercury retrograde periods and how it affects that. And I would imagine that if you didn't know that it was retrograde for the last 3 or 4 weeks, that you'd be starting to say, oh, no wonder, as we're talking about it now. So it sends us into a little bit of a head spin. And I usually find the first few days you're like, yep, okay, we're here. You probably notice it the week before, because it starts to go into shadow and it starts to build up, goes into its own shadow. And then about a week in, it's really starting to make people a bit itchy. Get to the middle of it and you start to see some fairly sweary posts coming out about Mercury retrograde, people are pulling their hair out, that kind of thing. Now, some people next to you will say, oh, I'm not having any problems at all, but this person on the other side of you will be saying, I can't do this for another minute. So it tests our patience, because we're used to going forwards. It's a little bit like if you opened the lid on the washing machine and looked in, and the cycle kept changing. You know how some of them, the agitator keeps changing, and you're like, that's wrong. It needs to be going the other way. And it's that kind of feeling. So as we get into it, it starts to reveal to us, what is this particular cycle about for me this time around? And what do I need to be looking at? And if you look back over the last 3 or 4 weeks, you'll see anything you've been frustrated about or that's been slowed down for you, there's a bit of a theme to it. I did some really smart things this time around. I bought a new iPhone while Mercury was retrograde, because I just couldn't deal with my own frustration. So of course I knew it was retrograde. I don't care. I'm getting a new phone. So then one of the dilemmas I had was that I had 2 mismatching SIM cards. Usually the number rolls over just fine. Not this time. If I phoned someone, it came through with my usual number. If we texted, they got some random number from this SIM card. And I've still got people trying to ring this SIM card that won't respond anyway, because it's not my number. But, like, not even going to try and deal with it until next week when it's well and truly direct. So those kind of things, social media posts that go a little bit silly and end up in the wrong place, you've got to really watch your messaging and your emailing and that kind of thing. You could actually press the wrong button, so be careful what you say during Mercury retrograde. It could go exactly where you don't want it to, more so than usual times. And anything like, if you're dealing with banking, contracts, new phones, new cars, anything like that, it's not that you can't do it at that time, but you can almost guarantee it's not going to go smoothly. Yeah. So I've currently got a couple of fingers in that pie, and I'm just like a little bit zen about it, because I just know it's like, oh, it's just unfortunate. If I could have controlled it, I would not have had that, except for the phone that I did on purpose. I would not have done it during this period, and I just know that I'm not going to get a response to any of it until next week, even though I'm open to that happening. But pretty much can predict one of the answers I'm waiting for. It'll be about Wednesday. Try and stay humorous about it. This cycle's been particularly tricky for us because it's been in the sign of Pisces, and Mercury likes to be very direct and very open, and Pisces is, of course, a watery sign. It's emotional, it's intuitive, it can be very insightful, but it's going to take you away from the surface. And so you can become very forgetful, very daydreamy, even a little bit tearful for no particular reason, or just completely, I don't care because I'm just out there, in the wonderful world of the esoteric. So it's been a really tricky one for most people. And if you were sailing fine with it, you can guarantee you'll have people around you who are not. So you still get the impact of it. But it's always the case, this too shall pass. And the idea of it is like around about now, while we call Mercury stationary, it's stationary until it goes direct at 1 a.m. tomorrow night. And then it will start to move. It'll get traction across the weekend, and you'll find that things untangle. That's kind of how it works. So then you become clear, like, oh, well, actually, that was really good because I worked out this, or I found out that. You usually find out something you need to know. You work out something that was confusing you. You get some important pieces of information, and you start to feel quite relieved in about a week's time.
Yeah.
That happens 4 times a year is Mercury retrograde, yeah?
Yeah. So on this chart, because I have actually got Astro Gold open, if I click that one day and advance it, we'll see the difference.
You'll see the difference. So it shows up like Mercury purple.
Wow. I've never done this.
Blue. Oh, isn't it fun? So you can see how they all move at a different pace now. Well done, Roz.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at Astro Gold, any planet that is retrograde, the numbers will show up red. Got it?
I went
Are we there?
Sorry.
Where are we? October. Oh, excellent. What's happening in October? Can we have a look?
Well,
anyway.
I'll put it back to now, not the 7:15. It's now whatever it is, 7:46, half an hour.
Cool. So people that are very detailed will notice whatever's changed in that half an hour period that you've just given it. Anyway, so that's a little bit about Mercury retrograde. Now, it being in different signs will affect different people differently. So you might have really thought this wasn't very enjoyable this time around. But then next time it goes retrograde in July, you might think, oh, that's okay. It's not impacting me quite so much. So it's very relatable to how the particular Mercury at the time, like this one now, how it relates to your chart. If you've got your sun in Pisces, you will have really felt the impact, but you might have enjoyed it. If your sun's in Virgo, you would have really felt it, etc. So it can impact you more strongly during different cycles through different signs, if that makes sense. The other trick to know about Mercury retrograde, even though it goes direct tomorrow night at 1 a.m. in South Australian time, it has to actually now move forward back past the degree at which it went retrograde. So when it went retrograde, the degrees went backwards if you were doing the chart thing. Now it's moving forward. It started going retrograde at 29 degrees of Pisces, and you can see now it's 16. So it's got to move back to 29 of Pisces before it's completely out of its own shadow. And it's during that period that we usually sort out all what we thought was not sort outable during that period, if that makes sense, yeah? And then we'll be off into Mercury in Aries and look at us go, yeah?
Yeah.
Aries does everything at breakneck speed. Loves it.
And the Aries is the one that's actually on the opposite of the rising, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes.
I can't remember what that term is for the opposite of the rising. It doesn't matter.
Ascendant or rising sign are both perfectly fine, yeah? And right. the descendant is opposite, which is where the sun is now.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't want to cause too much confusion with too much detail. Is everyone okay with that? Is there any question about Mercury or Mercury retrograde at the moment? Or is everyone...
There actually isn't any questions that I'm looking at in that back end, but I think there must be someone thrilled with the conversation and how you're describing it. They're just not writing a comment. So that's good.
Okay, no problem. Just checking before we move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully we're all going to breathe a collective sigh as Mercury stops this dance with us, agitating us around in the water realms this weekend and move forward. It was particularly tough on us mentally the last 2 days while it was stationary and not moving. It's like, everything just builds up and everyone gets a bit rattled. So what would you like to look at next? Do you want to have a look at the moon, Roz?
Yeah, there's the moon, which is opposite where I'm pointing to. You should be able to see that fairly clearly. Yes, it's got the chart on at the moment, Leonie.
Good. So the moon is in Capricorn today. Now, the moon changes signs approximately every 2.5 days.
Sorry, I was pointing at the wrong thing. I was pointing to the sun. Duh.
That would be in Aries. Which, incidentally, just for fun, can you see the red line that runs between the moon and the sun today? See how the moon is currently, well, on my chart it's currently at 9, which was 7:15, and the sun is at 7 of Aries, moon 9 of Capricorn.
And it's got the little square there.
Yeah, so that's a square. And a square means that there's some agitation and some friction between these two. The element of Aries works very differently to the element of Capricorn. It doesn't mean they can't work together. They can, but they need a bit of argy-bargy and come to understand each other first, because Capricorn likes to be slow, methodical, practical, cautious, based in reality, cross all the T's, dot all the I's, make sure everything's done properly, lots of integrity, honesty, and, you know, great manager, great organizer, that kind of thing. Aries also extremely brilliant in its own way, but does things at breakneck speed. So straight away, you've got two differences. One likes to go, you know, like it's in a Ferrari in top gear, and the Capricorn is like, no, let's just settle down here. And so often in the Capricorn energy of the moon in Capricorn, like we are now, you'll find if you didn't feel it today when it kicked in, you'll find by tomorrow you will, that things are slowing down a bit. There'll be a great deal of focus of wanting to be organised and get things done, but the idea that you can rush things and brush over the top of it, Capricorn doesn't go for that. Doesn't go for that at all. Yeah. And but Aries is like, oh, I want it done, not just yesterday, preferably last month or last year, you know, just ripped hair wanting to get things done. It's great pioneering, initiating, a rocket fuel kind of energy to initiate and get things started. It's very brave and courageous. Capricorn's also very brave, but very steadfast, very different earthy, practical energy to the fiery, sort of bulletproof, brave energy of the Aries. So also you'll see that there are 1, 2, 3 other points in Capricorn along with the moon, and that's Saturn right next to it, Pluto next to Saturn, and the other one that looks like an upside down horseshoe is South Node. So they are going to be all sitting closely together tomorrow because the moon will move up closer to them in degree tomorrow. So that's going to make tomorrow a pretty intense day. If you've got lots of business meetings or lots of practical things that you have to get done, this energy will support you well. It could be quite intense at times. And you might find yourself growing a little impatient with delays and things like that that may happen to get things done, particularly because it's Friday as well as. But things do tend to slow down and settle a bit in the Capricorn moon, but we feel very organised. By the time you get to the end of Friday and into Saturday, you feel like, right, I've really sorted out that to-do list, whiteboard sorted, cleared, you know, I'm ready for the weekend, and you'll probably want to whip around and organise the house or something on the weekend before you go and have fun. Because Capricorns, despite popular opinion, Capricorns love having fun. They plan for it. They actually plan for spontaneity. I shall do this on Thursday night. When Thursday night comes, they'll rip into spontaneity, but it was already in their diary planned for. Yeah? See what I mean? Whereas an Aries just does it, for example, you know, given that we're looking at the sun and moon with Aries. So the reason that I, for one, do quite a few posts about the moon, and you'll see a lot of posts through Instagram and social media around the moon, is because it does move quickly and it really does flavour society's mood. Some moon signs and moon movements you're going to find you relate to differently throughout the month. So the moon goes through every sign of the zodiac every 28 days. So 2.5 days per sign, 12 signs, so therefore every 28 days. Every 2 weeks, it's either a new moon or a full moon. So the new moon and full moon are 2 weeks apart. The new moon always occurs in the same sign as the sun. So our next new moon is going to be in Aries, and it's fast moving towards that. It's got two signs to go until it's in Aries, and that's going to be a very big fat powerhouse. The new moon in Aries every year is a great time to really power ahead. It's good when it comes a little bit after New Year because you've settled down into the year and you can be like, right, I could go back to the drawing board of what I want to do, but it's a real powerhouse. The full moon always occurs with the moon on the opposite side of the chart to the sun. So if it was a full moon today, which it isn't, the moon would be in Libra, opposite the sun in Aries. Yeah. Yes. So every 2 weeks we have a new moon or a full moon, and the phases change. So we're in the middle between the two, around about smack bang in the middle. Ros, we were initially going to do this on a full moon or a new moon or something, weren't we? Anyway, I think that's when Mercury retrograde got us, didn't it?
Yeah, remember? Well, it was
Facebook collapsed. Facebook had a big crash. Loved it. Hilarious. Anyway, that was Mercury retrograde at its best. Boom, gone. Biggest crash Facebook's ever had. And Mercury retrograde in Pisces just absolutely drowned it, didn't it? They couldn't get it back up to save themselves. It was hilarious. Oh. And apparently half of the planet had an existential crisis because social media wasn't available. Anyway, that's our contemporary lives, isn't it? So We do have a look, and we do posts about the moon and its movement and how it's affecting us globally and the mood globally a lot on Facebook and whatever, because we can all relate to it. And like I said, you relate to some more than the others. And so one of the key things about the Capricorn is the organisation. You'll suddenly want to clean up everything that, you know, hasn't been cleaned up in the last couple of weeks. Tidy up. It's a bit like the metaphor would be sorting out your filing cabinet, the inner one and the outer one, and get everything into an organised list in a hole so you can tick it off and do it and map things out. But then it will change signs into Aquarius, totally different. We want to let go into freedom. When that happens, it's like, right, everything's all in order. Now I can, you know, let go into this next phase. Some of the other ways you can see things are the moods of traffic. You can have some fun looking at how everyone's behaving in traffic differently on the different moons. So this is where you can sometimes see some similarities between Aries and Capricorn, because Capricorn with Saturn there next to the moon can make us a little bit impatient for wanting to get things done and a bit frustrated. And Aries has no patience. In traffic, you can see a bit of both, but you definitely see more road rage and ridiculous behaviour of people cutting people off, honking, tooting, motorbikes zipping around. It really elevates during the moon in Aries. So watch out for that one on the new moon in a few days' time. But in Capricorn, we tend to be more settled. People usually, by the second day of Capricorn moon, people are running late for meetings, that kind of thing, despite the organisation part. It's because everything's slowed down. And we probably had too much packed in, thinking, I'll do all of this, and then the moon comes and says, not until you finish that, you won't. So, it's quite fascinating. In your personal chart, in your natal chart, your moon for you, for each of us, is a very intuitive, receptive, instinctual part of us. It talks to us about our emotional self, about our relationship with mum. If you're a woman, it speaks to you about the kind of mum you see yourself as, and how you see that obviously changes over time. Your relationship to yourself as woman and to others as women. A little bit about your relationship with men, depending on how they see women, that kind of thing. But I kind of refer to her as the she who must be obeyed. If you don't know your moon sign and you don't know your moon archetype, then oftentimes we're not treating her well. And that's a little bit like swearing at your inner goddess, So it's really good to know your moon and what she wants and what she needs to feel good, because you could be denying her and it could be causing all sorts of inner itches and distresses, and you can't work out why. But it's amazing when you know your inner moon and you really tap into her, what this brings to you, and how much better you understand yourself. You're like, oh, okay. And often it is our rising sign or our moon that we display first. So if I said something right now that gave Ros a bit of a shock, she'd probably react from her moon sign, and then we might see the sun and the other energy, other archetypes come in behind it. So it's very instinctual. And often times as intuitives, which we women are known to be, all of us women, not that men can't be, but we're known for it, because we are the receptive gender, even though there's a multitude of genders. We can often pick someone and think, oh, I think that person's a Virgo. And it may not be their sun sign, it might be their moon sign. So I've often met people who are really good at actually picking a moon sign and not realising it. I think, oh, got that wrong, because they're looking for the person's sun sign, but they've actually picked up their moon sign. And the other one that we can really pick up is the rising sign as well, because that's how we, that's not our identity, but it's how we project our identity into the world.
From memory, I'm really almost tempted to pull mine up, but I don't think I will. But from memory, without actually looking at it, I think my sun and moon are actually both in Virgo anyway, and around about either the 10th, 11th or 12th house. I mean, that's where nearly all of mine are, is up there. That sort of thing.
You do have, that's another little quirky thing I've got with astrology. If I've worked with someone in their chart, I very rarely forget a chart. And so you do have moon in Virgo, and you have Mercury in Leo.
I think it is. Yes.
Which is, so this kind of format is really good for Ros to be chatting away, and the Leo is a very proud, demonstrative sign. It likes to speak with authority. It likes to be heard, and it loves to share. And so this is one of the really good examples of your Mercury in Leo. And also I know Roz has a beautiful musical voice and is really very talented with any musical instrument as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's just good fun.
And it's wonderful. And I mean, it's very much you. And so, so you were born on a new moon. Yeah. You have to be. To have your moon, to have sun and I think it was. Yeah. And so that's quite auspicious to be born on a new moon. Yeah. And it's great to have your sun and your moon are in sync with each other as well. But we'll very much choose the energy that we need, don't we? And so we'll have our moon and our sun, everything else placed exactly where it needs to be for this life's pathway, and for us to take to it with gusto, with our free will, and do whatever we want with it. But there's still a level of where your soul is pulling you through this blueprint of your chart, that it's going to keep wanting you to come back to that. But absolutely happy with you to explore it however you wish to. Can I say something else about you, Roz? Is that all right as a demo? Because some of these people that are listening to you know you and have worked with you.
Yeah. Did you want me to pull my chart up?
Would everyone like to do that? To have a bit of a demo and see about it? It makes it really easy to talk about if you don't mind being demoed.
That's if I can find it. How do you find Astro Gold?
You go to My Files and find it. Except that I haven't got. I'm only using my app at the moment, so I don't have you in there.
No, you wouldn't have mine on that one, would you? Because we had to really last time I consulted. No, it's not here for an easy find.
Let me just say one thing for people who do know you and who maybe either really, very know astrology really well, or know you well, or are coming to astrology, more as being newly introduced to it. So Roz has lots of planets in Virgo, not just her sun and moon, quite a few, in Virgo. So she's holds that Virgo archetype really strong. But we see a lot of other things with you besides the Virgo. So we've already said that Mercury, the way that you communicate and think, is in Leo. And I see with your thought patterns and the way you approach new information, it's very Leo. Let me get hold of that. And now let me turn it, into mine and bring it back to the world in that format, which is awesome. The Virgo loves details, is very detailed, very careful with information. It's an earth sign. It's a perpetual learner. She is very talented. I totally agree, Yvonne. And thank you. If Roz could put a list up of all of the things she's studied and learned, we'll be here until this time tomorrow night, and she'll still be finding, oh yes, and then I did this and this. So if Roz wants to know something, she'll go and do a diploma in it to find out about it. Which is fine. It's very Virgoan, and no detail can be left out. And I know from having had the pleasure of knowing Roz as a friend and having worked with her for a long time, sometimes really closely, and other times we've been, far apart and whatever. But I love that Virgo detail, and I love all the aspects of the archetypes in people, but I love that Virgo detail about you. But the other thing I wanted to shine a light on is how we also reflect our opposite sign as well. So whilst you've got sun, moon, and at least a couple of others in Virgo, you also reflect the Pisces energy as well, which is opposite. And so together they can be very zen, and take things really, learn to take things really easy, which is not, if you just read the archetype of Virgo, so that's not what they do. They're perfectionists and they're this and that and whatever. But when you see that blend of how you are reflecting that, almost like that empty space opposite as well, you see the archetype of the almost like the professor who can be very focused and tell you absolutely everything that you ever wanted to know, and then everything you never wanted to know about a particular topic, but can be totally lost to the world. I don't know what my name is, I don't know what the day is or what time it is, and I don't care. You see that,
It's in the background, totally agreeing with you, because my youngest is a Pisces born on the 8th of March, so he's got that energy around him, like that really casual, laissez-faire. Yes.
But then, when people think, okay, well, that's Roz, and then the next minute you pull the detailed Virgo, absolute, precision for something, which I think comes through you so naturally and intuitively with your music and a lot of other things you do as well. And you see that blend. So that's the evolution of growing into your energy, and it's beautiful. Yeah. So I went there because I wanted to share that, how we can also show the opposite of that sign as well.
Yeah, but I mean, over time, amazingly, how much, and I don't follow it daily type of thing. You know, there was a time where I wanted the detail and really was, you know, intentions where I was going to do this daily, the same as the cards, which I still do have intention, meditate daily. Doesn't always work out, but that's okay. And it's just doing what you need each time that you feel, you know, that gut feeling, I think I really need to do, and you go in and you do it, you know, use whatever tool that is at the time that's right, whether it's just straight out deep breathing or the humming or the toning or the playing the flute or whatever, which I might do some more of. And, you know, it's the right thing comes up at the right time.
It does. Absolutely. It does. And that's we can be very intense. Very intense with something through, it's like I've got a Mercury in Virgo, so I think Virgo, like a Virgo, even though it's not my sun sign or my moon. And it's where it's been an easy communication between Ros and I in that sense as well. So we can go, you know, down a rabbit hole for 2 years on something and still talk about it, you know, when we catch up. But that immersion is what is something that the Virgo energy loves to immerse in, that, and does not want to come out until it's touched every touch point, connected every dot, and it's like finishing a jigsaw puzzle. Do not ask me to leave the table until, if I haven't put the last piece in, I know where it's going to go. And I might
don't you dare move my bookmark.
No. So it's fascinating, all the different elements of a sign. It's not just and how it plays in the whole of the chart. It's not just that bit that we can read in the book, which is the beauty of how intuition comes to a chart. It's the only way to synthesize the whole chart, you know.
It's also too the fascination, I suppose, because I'm a twin and there was only the 15, 20 minutes apart between our birth. We're totally different, even though we're both the same sign and all the rest of it. So, you know, it's just all those little nuances that matter.
They do. And it's very, very much, if you're into sacred geometry, you can understand that intuitively too, like you can a chart. And so those kind of elements become really important when we're talking about twins and things like that are very close together but very different, even though their charts are identical apart from minutes. Then you start looking into the harmonics and the very, you know, finely divided down specs of the chart, basically. Some of that, even though I'm good at maths and I like it, some of that's just a bit much for my neurons. So that's when I use intuition and I can pick which twins what. When I look at the charts, I'm happy with that. Oh my God.
So
how are we going? You see, I know. Once I start talking about astrology, you can't shut me up. Sorry about that if I've
no, that's all right. I was just thinking because I do. It's not that it's a regimented one must do these shows in only 1 hour, because it isn't like that. I mean, actually, Facebook allows 4 hours, I think, and then you can start another one and do another 4 if you want to. That's not my intention tonight, Leonie.
Very good.
It really is interesting into the amount of detail that you can actually get into with it. Now, I haven't spent the time doing that sort of detail as much as I like to, because that is, you know, I really do like to dot the I's, cross the T's and all that sort of stuff, and, you know, games being finished and stuff. I have a lot of UFOs sitting in a room there in a box when I moved, but which is just the unfinished objects or unfinished subjects or whatever. But it's, you know, if you really do feel like some of that stuff does get a bit too much for you as a novice or someone just inquiring, you're the perfect person to come to get the detail, aren't you? So,
and I love it. Yes.
I think really you probably should share some of the detail of what's coming up for you. Are you doing courses or anything like that, or are you working from rooms somewhere? Some of that probably is known to the people who are looking here.
Yes. So I have I have a consulting room here in Adelaide, or in Brighton in Adelaide, nice beachy suburb. So I'm available there face-to-face if anyone's in Adelaide. But I also work via Zoom and Skype and phone for people anywhere in the world. So I have probably more clients outside of South Australia than in it, I think, and not because I don't have lots of SA people, but because it's spread around over the years. So I'm regularly working with people in different time zones and things like that by Zoom, just a little bit like we are here, but with better lighting. Sorry, I'm a bit in the dark tonight. Not that I don't mind that at all.
That is how it works at times.
Absolutely. So I'm available that way. I work with your natal chart, but also, what would you say, we work above it. Once I've worked with you on your natal chart, it's like I can, which is why I've got the nickname the Soul Whisperer. It's like your soul just speaks to me. And so we dive in and we start to speak at that very open, deep, connected level once we're working together, and we can delve in and out of whatever it is that you want to delve in and out of. I guess I specialise in helping people that are having growing pains. So if you're feeling like things are shifting and changing and you can't work out why, or even you do kind of know why, but you're still not feeling like you could do with some confirmation and some assistance and some soul coaching and mentoring around how to navigate it, I'm really good at that. I do children's charts, family charts to look at the connections between families, layers of the family and how things are working and how come this person's easy to get on with and that one I'm having difficulty with. Business charts and business relationships and event charts and whatever you want to chart for, I can do that. I'm not terribly interested in, I am interested in mundane astrology, which is, the charts of countries and towns and things like that. I have an interest in that, but I'm really interested in the individual and connecting you to the bigger picture so that you understand where you are at any point in time. And it's like having the blinkers removed and the world opened up to you and seeing, and not just seeing, but feeling, actually feeling and resonating with how it is that you're connecting to your bigger plan of why you're here and what you're doing and why is this phase like it is. So that's kind of where my passion is. I'm often asked to teach astrology and have done over the years in various formats. You and I shared some time together with that way back, probably 10 years ago, didn't we? And I'm just working on another program where I can work with people who are not in Adelaide, and I'm going to open that in June to a small group. I don't like working with huge numbers because I like things to be really personal, and the way I teach astrology is through your chart. So you're going to hit the ground running with your own chart from probably lesson 2. We need to go through the basics of astrology in a bit more sensible framework than what we did tonight, but go through those basics and then you'll continue to work with those and synthesize a bit. Then we start working with your chart and working through that. So over a period of time, you get to know yourself really well. We work with the growth cycles, and then we can start to look at how you relate to others through a relationship chart and look at that. So it's just very fascinating, but I find that learning through yourself is a really powerful way so you feel and resonate and experience what it is that you're going through really intuitively. Anyway, so I'm going to be opening that in June. And I'm going to actually do it by application. It won't be a tough thing, but just I'm going to have a few questions. If you'd like to do this course, tell me this about yourself and blah, blah, blah. And then we know that we've got a really well-synced group so that it can be very personalised.
Yeah.
And that initial course will go for 3 months. Yeah.
Sounds really exciting, and that just means keep an eye on Leonie's page. I have put the link in the description. Just wanting to acknowledge that there is a few more here who've popped in. Lashawna Denise, hi. I'm not putting the pretty one up, but the comment, but thank you. There is a question. Hi, Sharon. One of your comments, the Hi Ros, shows up with your picture, and the next one, oh no, it's come up now. Oh, that's a bit weird. There was one of them took its time to actually come up. BeLive TV does have a few little things because of Facebook connection and whatnot. But anyway, what I wanted to put here now is there is a couple of questions. Yvonne had put this one, Leonie. What about the Virgo and Cancer? How do they get along? I think that's when you were talking about when we ones that were there.
Yvonne, the short answer to that is we can get along with anyone, but it won't necessarily be as flowing. And often what you'll see in the textbooks is they'll say, oh, Virgo gets along with Capricorn and Taurus. And the reason they say that is because they're all earth signs. But some Virgos, Capricorns and Taurus can't even stand to be in the same room, let alone breathe the same air. So it's not always accurate. When you see that chart, like the chart Ros put up, and each of us have a natal chart, so you could have a Virgo and Cancer, and it might technically, they might say, look, these guys don't usually get on very well. But it depends what else you've got. That person who's a Virgo may have their Venus in Cancer, yeah? And the person who's a Virgo may have something else connecting. And you've got these connecting points in your chart. And so that's how we can tell what the relationship's going to be like and where the sticky points are. Do your Mercuries get on well? Have you got Mercuries that resonate so you can communicate well? Does Venus and Mars, do they like each other? Very important in our relationships of how our Venus and Mars are situated to each other, etc. So it's a bit tricky to answer just from the sun sign. And then you could get, you know, a whole group of Virgos and a whole group of Cancerians who the only thing they've got really in common is their is their sun sign, and not too much else is connecting up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry, I can't answer that directly without seeing your chart.
Yeah. The chart. LaShawn is asking a sort of similar thing as far as relationship inquiries. Just if LaShawn, if you are still here, oh, excuse me, we're not actually doing readings as such tonight. It's just a chat and looking into astrology, which is quite a bit different in the instance of, you know, it's not a thing that you hurry into, because I'd have to put in the chart details and all sorts of stuff. For a live thing, it just won't work.
I'd need the charts beforehand so that we had them all ready to go. I've done lots of readings on radio, and
oh, I like that.
Yeah,
there's someone.
I've had a hubby that's a Virgo too, Julie.
And
so we usually have the charts erected very quickly, and then I can speak to the chart. But it's a bit tricky in this environment. But we could certainly do another one another day, and some people could send their charts in, and I could have a look if we had them done before.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of
Virgo and Leo can get on very nice, Julie. True, and being the two signs that are next to each other, you're bound to have something else. Both of you have probably got something in Virgo and something in Leo in your chart as well. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be wonderful to have you do this similar type of thing again as a live. Very happy to organise one. We'll see what develops. But it probably is that for what we had as our aim tonight is pretty much, have we covered everything that you wanted to go through?
Well, we're very ad hoc tonight, everyone, about what it is that we talk about, just to give people a bit of a taste of it. There's plenty of other things that we could talk about. I think that the transformational cycles, like, there's just so much we could talk about. So we don't want to be overloading. So I think, whatever we thought we were doing, we've just done it, and that's that, isn't it now? So,
well, it was and there is astrology out there, and I knew someone who's absolute expert at it. So I thought, why not?
So if you'd like, thank you, Ros, for having me, and I'd be very happy to come back and actually do either one chart to show people how we go through it and do it, either a business chart or a personal chart, or have a look at three, but you and I could talk about how we do that. And also what we didn't do tonight that often we do is let people know, you know, some sort of offer or somehow they can do a little bit more if they don't want to do the full thing. We can talk about that and do that next time. But I'd love to come back another time. That'd be lovely. Yeah,
we can, and there is other ways of offering, whether we do a little competition or something like that, or whatever. I mean, there's the social media platforms are a perfect way to communicate, which is why we're here. It's communication, and actually just getting to know the various tools that are around and what you can use to actually grow. Looking at who you yourself are from that most inner part of yourself to what you're actually putting out to the world and how you want to behave, who you're finding out who you are, and what else that I probably have forgotten. I don't know, because I'll probably need another coffee. I don't know. This finishing up stuff sometimes gets a bit confusing because, like you said, mean, normally when you plan something, you have a little agenda and you've got an offer at the
You
end.
do.
Well, I wasn't that organised. I like
Me
to go.
either.
It's my way of doing things, so I didn't have it organised. Thank you, everybody, for being here and joining in. It has been wonderful to introduce Leonie to you as a wonderful astrologer and soul whisperer. So connect to her page. You by now would know where my page is. It's Hypnosis Plus with Roz as the business page, and I just go around as Roz Boundy now because I've dropped the bets. So there you go. For those that knew me as both, know me as both. It's lovely to catch up. When the next time will be, we'll let you know. It'll be somewhere that we'll do a little bit more of a notice with it instead of whatever it was, 2 hours, 3 hours. And we'll see you next time about the stars. Anything else to finish with, Leonie?
No, just to say thank you to you and your lovely viewers. It's been delightful. And I hope I didn't try and ram too much in.
Oh, no, I think it was perfect. Thank you.
Goody.
To everybody, till next time. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye now.